Welcome to WJ Live, where we equip listeners with the truth. My name is George Upper, the editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and today I'll be joined by Deputy Managing Editors Josh Manning and Joe Sedian. We'll talk about whether Vice President Mike Pence dodged a pro-life question, Senator Kamala Harris's likability, or lack thereof, and why the Committee on Presidential Debates keeps changing the rules. WJ Live starts right now.
A face that would have curdled fresh milk. If you watched the vice presidential debate last night, you know who I'm talking about, and it's not Mike Pence, nor is it Susan Page.
I didn't say anything.
It was. Well, George was being disrespectful.
I would
earlier.
never do that.
It was Kamala Harris, and that's what a lot of the media is talking about this morning. Now, what's interesting, the media is talking about how she smirked and how she looked and how people perceived it. The media is making that a story, and then the media is condemning it.
Right.
Saying, oh my gosh, this is sexist, this is racist, there's a double standard here, and Mike Pence is not held to that same standard. Well, we all know what Mike Pence looks like. He has basically the same expression on his face the entire time.
Ray Spannon.
Ray Spannon, exactly, from Johnny Quest. And Kamala, though, is a little more expressive. And this is what she looked like approximately 98% of the time last night.
Did we actually measure the 98% figure, or is that an estimate?
That's an estimate.
Okay.
That's an estimate.
I
It
just
may
wanted
have
to-
been 97,
just wanted
96,
some
97.
clarity. Okay.
Now, WAPO's Amber Phillips came in and ran a piece entitled, Kamala Harris critics fell into the is she likable trap. Now,
that trap.
that trap,
Oh,
that
yeah.
old
The
trap.
Likability grift.
That's
exactly. Remember that trap? Yeah.
Exactly. And
I hate it when I fall in that trap.
yeah, so I love how the media handles stuff like this. Phillips writes, research shows voters hold women to a much higher standard of likability and experience, and that black women are doubly saddled with a perception that they're naturally angry or domineering in nature. I have no idea where that comes from. So Harris had a lot of hills to climb just by being on the stage and who she is, the daughter of Jamaican and Indian immigrants. So Kamala looked unlikable, appeared unlikable, and gosh, racism.
Right. Well,
Racism.
what other possible explanation could there be?
Exactly. Now, some of the commentariat weighed in. Megyn Kelly said, and we've got a tweet from her, she said during the debate to Kamala via Twitter, don't smirk, don't shake your head, don't smile mockingly, wait. Kelly later said, take it like a woman, don't make faces. Our friend Chuck Grassley, he weighed in and he said after the Pence-Harris debate, the winner's usually the one you would want to have dinner with. I think Pence would get the invitation most likable.
Yeah. That's
So,
an interesting take. Of
what
course, he fell into the likability trap.
He did
So
fall into the
I don't know if he
likability,
knows
like
that.
we all have, apparently.
Well, yeah, right.
Phillips, by the way, just as an aside, Phillips never goes on to explain what the likability trap is or how people fell into it, other than her writing an entire article about likability as she's decrying it. It's very strange. So, was Kamala likable?
Well, Josh, here's the thing. Was Kamala likable? I don't particularly think so. But her likability, to me, has nothing to do with the smug expressions she's making or the smiles or the smirks or anything like that. I think that's the wrong line of attack because it gives the left ammo to make their false racism, sexism claims. The line of attack that you go off is she is an extraordinarily dishonest politician, and that is exactly what she showed last night. She refused to answer questions about court packing, just like Joe Biden did in the presidential debate last week, and she claimed that she and Joe Biden would not ban fracking when there are multiple videos on the record of her and Biden saying the opposite.
Yep.
Don't go after her likability. Don't go after her smug expressions. Go after the fact that she is a dishonest, really bad politician.
Yeah, dishonesty is not likable.
What's interesting to me here is you see some conservatives talking about how unlikable she was, but I haven't seen any saying that's a reason not to vote for her. What I have seen is conservatives saying that's a reason some people won't vote for her. And I think that's true. The average voter, I think Grassley's right, It's who do you, with Clinton, we always said it was who do you want to grab a beer with?
Right.
Who do you want to get a beer with? And the answer to that was always Bill Clinton.
Right.
And so I do think there's something to be said for how the voters perceived her. But I agree completely, the line of attack, and that's the line of attack that the Western Journal has taken.
Yes. And it should be.
And I think
so.
a lot of other conservatives, just she's incredibly intellectually dishonest. Now, we got into a discussion last night in the newsroom when the debate had wrapped up about who was less likable, Kamala or Hillary. And I want to take a poll from you guys, and then I have my opinion. I'll share it at the end. Hillary or Kamala? Which one?
Well,
less likable.
I'm going to say that it's Kamala, just because I was not around for much of the 90s, the Clinton heyday.
That's interesting, because my answer is probably the opposite of that. For me, it's Hillary, but it's because I know Hillary better. And the knower is to dislike her. So, actually, very similar dynamic, just kind of the opposite timing.
So I was thinking about this last night. I think Kamala is less likable, but I think it's because Hillary knows she's unlikable. Hillary, when she gets on stage, knows she's unlikable, and she compensates for it the best she can. Kamala doesn't know. She thinks she's cute. She thought the smirks were cute. She thinks the sassiness is cute. And
they were certainly well rehearsed.
It was very clearly well rehearsed.
I think Harris is more of a polished, or she has better advisors feeding her things. Everything that she says sounds canned, and that's because she is dishonest, because she's running away from a record that is not progressive, and she's trying to make herself out to be a progressive icon while also fitting with the sort of establishment Democrats. She doesn't know what she stands for. In the play Hamilton, they say to Aaron Burr, if you stand for nothing, Burr, what'll you fall for? I think that so accurately describes Harris, because nobody knows what she stands for. She's just getting these lines from politicians, from her advisors, and repeating them, and she sounds like someone who doesn't believe anything.
Well, she is very good at imprisoning voters she now counts on.
So
there's that.
True as well.
I'll tell you who doesn't think Harris came off as likable as the New York Times. And that may sound like a surprising statement.
Racist.
And they would never tell you that, of course. But they did a piece this morning, and I actually waited for this piece to come out because I really wanted to see how they'd handle the debate last night.
The likability trap?
Particularly in light of the fact that they just endorsed Biden the day before or 2 days before. So how they come out and, how do they now proclaim objectivity and rate this debate. So they did a piece, fairly standard piece, fact-checking the debate. They fact-checked Pence 8 times. Harris, 0.
Ooh,
I am shocked.
That tells me that they know they've got damage control they have to do. Here's my favorite. They listed out 8 bullet points. My favorite one is this one. Quote, Pence said Biden would ban fracking. Biden would not. Now, let's set aside a fact.
So they're the official spokespeople
for a moment. Let's set aside the fact that we have video of Biden
saying
and Harris saying they were going to ban fracking. My favorite thing is the definitive future tense statement. Biden would not. Yep. Now I know why it's the New York Times. It's not the New York Times because time and space mean nothing to them. They can see the future. They know exactly what Biden is not going to do. He's not going, under any circumstances, ban fracking. I also love the fact that they said very clearly Biden would not. They didn't say anything about Harris. Mm-hmm. Because they think Harris is going to be the president in less than 4 years. I used to think that was kind of a grift,
conspiracy.
Yeah. I think the left honestly believes now that they are in an election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
That's a really interesting idea. Rush said for forever that Biden was the only one who might be able to beat Trump, but they were never going to pick Biden because he wasn't far enough left. Maybe this is a case of the left actually kind of figuring out how to have their cake and eat it too. The Trojan horse thing. Yeah. Exactly. Biden is far more electable than Harris is. Biden
got 2% in the polls. Didn't even drop out before the primaries.
Exactly. And so you want to talk about, if the Democrats want to come back in and talk about a mandate from the people and what the voters actually said, yes, please take over Kamala. We will be able to destroy her there. But as Pence said last night, I think we're going to win. I love the way he said, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris manage to win, they manage to win, if somehow they can win. Yeah. I like the messaging there. But anyway, Joe, you had a criticism of some of
I wanted to talk about
Pence's messaging.
Some of what Mike Pence spoke about yesterday. So Mike Pence was asked in the context of if Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, then would he support his home state of Indiana making abortions illegal? And Mike Pence dodged the question. He did not immediately answer it. He talked about the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, and we're going to roll the clip of that right now.
Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump.
Now, I think that's absolutely cowardly, to be completely honest. Mike Pence is a pro-life politician. He has been extremely vocal about being pro-life. But last night, he was asked a point-blank question. Do you think abortion should be banned? And he would not answer it. Now, a little bit later on in the debate, he eventually said, I'm very pro-life. I stand for pro-life policies. We'll actually play a clip of that right now.
Let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life.
But Mike Pence never answered the question. Do you want to ban abortion? Do you think that abortion should be illegal? The reason that I think that's cowardly is because it's so much easier to say you are generally pro-life. You are pro-life can mean so many different things to so many people. I know to the Western Journal, it means life begins at the moment of conception. But for other people, it's a phrase that's open to interpretation. It's much, much braver to say, yes, I believe abortion should be banned. I think this is something that needs to end. And that's a bit more of that's a bit harder of a position to take, even though it's one that he should have taken and one that conservatives should take and one that you should not be afraid of taking.
So I think the argument here, Joe, part of the argument here is political versus journalistic. So as a journalist, you and me and Josh want a clear, concise answer from him that we can then report on. As a politician, he wants to win the election. It's a different goal. Mm-hmm. And as a pro-life voter, I want him to win that election because he cannot, outside of power, or outside of office, I should say, his ability to enact pro-life or fight for pro-life policies is more limited. So I want him in office. I want him and Donald Trump, who's a very pro-life president, I want him in office as well. So while I would not support them lying, and I don't think he did last night, I do have no problem with him taking a position that, not necessarily taking the position, explaining a position that is a little more nuanced, a little more middle of the road, if that's what it takes to get him elected, because I know what he's going to do when he's elected. He's going to act like the pro-life politician that he always has been. So I'm less concerned, as long as he's honest, and he was. I don't think he said anything dishonest. Generally speaking, I think he was very honest throughout the debate, but certainly in that position, I don't think he said anything I had a problem with. If that's the position, if taking that a little bit more middle of the road stance gets him elected, so that then he can enact those things I want him to enact, I'm fine with that.
So I generally despise the idea of moving to the middle of the road, even rhetorically, to get elected. I see the value in it, but it grates on me.
As a journalist, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. But I thought what was interesting last night when we were watching this together while we were covering it, as soon as Pence started talking about Soleimani instead of abortion, a cry went up in the room. Oh, he's dodging it. He's dodging it. If you guys remember, I was the only one who did not think that. And sure enough, he used part of the next answer he had to go back and deal with the abortion issue.
Uh-huh.
And I think everybody felt a little bit relieved there. I'm not positive he was dodging the question. I think, and maybe this is a semantic issue, you can answer a question in an unparalleled way. Joe might ask me, is it going to rain today? And I might respond, well, it's sunny outside. And I didn't really answer the question, but I didn't really dodge it either. Also, a good 5, maybe 10 minutes had passed since the question was originally asked. And it's entirely possible Pence actually thought he was answering the question. Maybe he didn't. He's a great politician. He's done this for a long time. He probably should have been able to note, okay, she's asking me a yes or no question. But I'm not sure it was considered dodging. What's dodging is what Kamala did when she was asked about packing the court.
She didn't answer.
She was asked repeatedly about that, given multiple opportunities.
And she kept saying, I'm trying to answer. That was
lying
I'm
about
trying
it.
to answer. If you give me time, I'll answer.
I'm trying not to answer. Yeah. It's like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. And so I'm not sure Pence, I guess I'm willing to be maybe a little bit forgiving to him and say I'm not sure he was intentionally dodging the question.
Don't you think it feeds into the left's the left wants to tell us that the general public is not with conservatives on abortion. The left wants us to think that everyone thinks abortion should be legal. Don't you think conservatives ought to be brave and to say what they actually believe, to be honest with the voters, especially on a huge stage like the vice presidential debate, and say, look, this is my position. I want abortion to be banned. I want this evil, ugly,
completely.
Murderous practice to never exist again. Shouldn't Mike Pence have said that?
All I'm saying is that, no, I agree. Yeah, he should have. I think there are lots of things he should have said up there. All I'm saying is it's not clear to me that he was trying to dodge the question.
I have a question for you then.
Yeah.
For both of you, actually.
Yeah.
If you were president, Josh, and you had the opportunity to make abortion illegal, to ban it in all circumstances, would you?
Except life of the mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
George, I have the same question for you. If you were president and you had the opportunity to make abortion illegal, would you?
Dodging the question.
No, I'm trying to be careful about my answer. I don't know that the president has the opportunity constitutionally to do that. So on that basis, my answer would be no. I would not do that because I believe that would be an unconstitutional exercise of power that the president does not have. I would support congressional efforts and state efforts to make that.
So let me rephrase the
question. I hear what you're saying, and I'm somewhat sympathetic.
Josh is a tyrant. He will do whatever he is able to do if you give him that level of power. I'm a constitutionalist.
Okay.
Well,
so
consider
Let me-
no. No. Consider the idea.
whatever fascist.
Okay, so let's say that white supremacy is in vogue in the media. Let's say an insane cabal of white supremacists take over and start rounding up Jews, and the Congress
president?
and the Congress. I am president.
Okay.
It's a very strange world.
That is
The Congress refuses to act.
okay.
I'm acting. I am absolutely acting. If the Congress abdicates its responsibility to protect life and liberty and the right to the pursuit of happiness, if they are flagrantly turning their backs on that, someone has to act. And I think the president in that case has to act. And this is genocide. And you want to talk about things along racial lines. Is genocide specifically directed at the African American community?
Margaret Sanger was very clear when she
Yeah,
founded Planned Parenthood.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No question.
Wildly disproportionate number of abortions are carried out on black babies. So it's not. I hear the constitutional argument you're making, but I think there's probably a higher moral law that at some point comes into play.
Let me rephrase the question, because you're right, it's getting into constitutional governance and kind of the job of the president. Let's say Roe v. Wade was overturned, so the question that Mike Pence faced, let's say Roe v. Wade was overturned and you were the governor of Arizona and you have the opportunity to sign a law making abortion illegal. Would you?
Absolutely.
Okay. See, my point is,
But the people of Arizona would be crazy to make me their governor. So let me just
I
have that
100%
caveat
agree
in
with
there.
that.
Okay.
The
thank
point I'm making is that it's very easy to answer that question as an affirmative. Yes, I would ban abortion.
Yes, I agree.
I believe it. And Mike Pence didn't do that.
It's
He did
very
not
easy
address
to
the
answer
specific
for
Nobody
question.
somebody who's
disagrees
not
with
running
that.
for vice president. I can answer that question very easily because I'm never going to run for office. I don't want to be in office. It's super easy for
You'd
me.
make a great governor.
I don't want to be. Please, never. I don't want anything to do with that. So it's really easy when you aren't trying to get the a majority of electoral college votes to put you in office where you can enact your policy. So I don't think that's a apples to apples comparison.
I don't take offense at this, Joe. This does remind me just a little bit of the left badgering Trump on white supremacy. Decry white supremacy, condemn white supremacy, condemn white supremacy. At some point, I mean, how many times do you have to say it? And Mike Pence has made very clear, abundantly clear, that he is extraordinarily pro-life. And so I'm not positive. I don't think Trump dodged the white supremacy question during the debate.
Don't think he did either.
And so I'm not. And had Proud Boys never come, well, actually he didn't, because the Proud Boys, I mean, they've got minority leadership, so it's hard to argue they're white supremacists. But to the extent that Trump didn't dodge the question, I don't think Pence did either. I just don't think he answered it as clearly or as concisely or as succinctly as I would have liked and probably you would have liked.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair argument to make. We'll just reiterate, on the big stage of the vice presidential debate, I think you should be honest with voters. And yes, obviously there's a political aspect of it where you want to sort of play the...
But he wasn't dishonest.
He wasn't dishonest, but he was not, by omission, he was not saying the thing that he wants to do, that he should be proud of wanting to do that. That is a position that he should be proud to take, and I worry that he didn't say it because he knew that would be unpopular with a lot of people.
I think that is why he didn't say it, but I don't worry about that. It doesn't. I don't see how that impacts reality in any way.
That's
from a practical point of view. I think it makes him more likely to be elected, and therefore or reelected, and therefore more able to enact these things that I think all three of us want him, to be in a power to not necessarily enact, but to influence.
I see what you're saying. Well,
to be that tie vote in the Senate, if nothing else.
True, and he has done that several times.
Yep.
He has, voted for pro-life things as to break the tie. That was the vice presidential debate, but coming up next week, maybe, is the next presidential debate, and that's what George is going to talk about.
Maybe, exactly. The Commission on Presidential Debates decided, I think they announced it just this morning, that the next presidential debate on October 15th, a week from today, will be virtual. And Trump wasted no time in getting on Fox Business, I think, and telling Maria Bartiromo that he was having nothing of it. We have that audio clip.
No, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. And then they cut you off whenever they want.
All right, so Trump says it's going to be a waste of time. A virtual event would be a waste of time. I want to get to that, his refusal, in a minute. But before we do, just really quickly, it just raised the question for me. Does a virtual event help or hurt Trump? Does he do better or worse in a virtual event versus being live on stage with Joe Biden?
It hurts Trump because there's no audience and he draws energy off the audience. It helps Biden because unless someone from the debate commission is there, he will obviously have a teleprompter on hand.
I agree with Josh, but for different reasons. I think that it definitely hurts Trump because he does feed off kind of just not necessarily the audience because there's not a huge audience there, but he does feed off the presence of being right next to his opponent, of the
spectacle.
Just the spectacle.
He
Trump
loses
is all
that
about
physically
spectacle.
imposing
He's a reality
nature.
television star,
Yeah.
and he feeds off of that reality television nature, which virtual events are just not the same. I think it benefits Biden, not necessarily with the teleprompter, but just because it helps the debate be a more calm, kind of a more orderly affair. Yeah. And I think that helps Biden because he is a more calm and orderly person than Trump.
Yeah, I did. And I think in general, I agree with you too. I did hear 2 points this morning that I thought were interesting. I'm not and I think I agree with them. I just don't know how important I think they are. One is it does give Trump the excuse basically to attend the debate from the Oval Office, which gives
There's
him
something to that.
Yeah, that gives him that sort of gravitas
Mm-hmm.
that we used to talk about with Dick Cheney back in the day.
Would that run afoul of any campaign laws or the Hatch Act or anything?
You could argue there's a Hatch Act argument to be made there, but since he already did the RNC from the White House,
that ship is
pick that
sailed.
up.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody cares, honestly.
I don't think anyone has
nobody
ever
cared
about the
before.
Hatch Act.
Exactly,
Right.
the Hatch
Yeah,
Act is a
until
joke.
various
Nobody ever cared
partisans can
before.
use it to their
Right.
benefit.
The only person
Right,
that
it's
cares
a
about it
tool.
is the guy whose opponent
Right.
is violating it. Yeah. So, to the practical question, what do you think will actually happen here? Is this Trump? Is this Trump bluster? Is this Trump leading out with a negotiating position? I'm not gonna waste my time. Who would waste their time with a virtual? Anybody doing that's got a hole in their head. Is that him laying out an initial position in order to as a negotiating position in order to get the other side to come closer to what he wants to do? In other words, do you think this event's going to happen or not?
Yes, I do. I think it's Trump bluster. I don't think it's a particularly smart move because what is Trump gaining? Who's going to look at Trump doing this bluster and say, that really makes me want to vote for President Trump more? I'm sure his base loves it, but it's not going to help him with people who are undecided or independents. It just kind of makes him look kind of petulant, like he is not willing to go along with exactly what he with something that he doesn't love. I think it will end up happening. I think there will probably be some negotiation, and there will probably be a virtual debate, and probably won't be as exciting as the first debate, but it'll happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. I think it's possibly a negotiating tactic. I think that's what he's doing with the COVID relief bill. I think that's exactly why.
Yes, I agree with that.
He
too.
ordered a halt to that. He's basically pulling off a walkaway in negotiation, and then they will, presuming they're going to crack first, and then he'll send negotiators back in, and we'll get a deal. He's done that before. He's done that many times before. So I don't know. I'm not positive anybody's going to. I'm not positive Biden will ever accept the idea of going before an audience when there's the slightest possibility that he can do it from his basement bunker.
Yeah, so I'm going to similar line of reason to what I used earlier. I think the establishment media thinks it's going to happen because of the way they're reacting to his statement this morning.
Are you saying I'm the establishment media?
No. Far be it from me. I've said many things about you, Joe, but I'd never say that. And I haven't said that many bad things about you. to your face. The establishment media is portraying Trump's statement as a vow. Trump vows he's never going to do this. To me, and maybe this is my old PSYOPs training, but to me, that tells me the establishment media thinks the debate is going to happen. They want to make his statement now as strong as possible so that when he, recants and they come to terms, whatever, they can say that he's breaking his word, that despite his vow not to do it, it's going to happen. And it's just going to be one more example of Donald Trump
Lying.
Yeah, lying, flip-flopping, whatever. When in actuality, it's an example, I think, of Donald Trump negotiating, which is what, if there's any strength that Donald Trump has, actually there are two. One is marketing. He's just a brilliant marketing, and two is negotiation. And that's, I think, largely why he was elected. I think that's why the people put him in office.
I think it's a threat. I think you're right. There's a difference between a threat and a vow. He's saying, I'm making a big threat, but he's not saying, I definitely will not do this. But you're absolutely right. The media wants to make it seem as though Trump, they want to make him look bad. And this makes him look not very good. And partly I think that's his own fault because it's a stupid threat to make, I think. But they're going to try to push it to the maximum extreme to make him look like, you said, just a liar, a flip-flopper, someone who can't keep his word.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think they'll try to do that. I also think that's evidence that they still, after 4 years of trying to learn everything they can about the man, they haven't figured him out.
They still haven't figured him out.
Still haven't figured him out.
He's so not a politician.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
He's not, and he is a performance artist, and they think when he uses hyperbole that he's lying, or at least they cast those as lies.
They wish.
They wish that. Exactly.
Right,
if you wish hard enough, then it really.
Yeah. That's right.
True. Yeah.
And Trump plays by a different set of rules. We used to talk about I took a negotiation class in grad school, and we used to talk about whether it's acceptable to lie when you negotiate. Some people think it is, some people think it's not, and we would compare it to football. When you're out on the football field, there's a different set of rules, right? If you're on the street and you run up to somebody and tackle them to the ground, you're going to get dragged away to jail. If you do it on the football field, everybody's agreed that those are the rules. That, hey, it's perfectly fine to nail somebody. Now, you do it within a confined set of rules, but everybody knows that the rules on the football field are different.
Josh is always using these sports metaphors.
Exactly.
It's a constant one after another sports metaphor.
Yeah. I'm just so impressed with the number of touchdowns the Yankees get every year. So I think the American people, though, know that Trump's playing a different game. And the media keeps trying to say, and that's one reason the media looks so whiny right now. It's like the media's out on the football field, and they're offended that Trump dared tackle one of them. And it's because he's playing by a different set of rules. The public realizes it's a different set of rules. And what's funny is the media even made that set of rules for him.
That's really interesting. The media plays by those rules. They just don't want anybody else to play by those rules.
Exactly right. So, 4 years in, they still don't understand him. I'm not sure whether the debate or refused. I don't think it's refused to. I think they genuinely, there's some myopia there. I think they can't see past the end of their own noses, and they think that the world, this is a classic leftist sort of trope too, right? They think that the world should be the way they see it.
Yes.
Conservatives don't think that at all. Conservatives think the world is a certain way and will never be the way we really want it to be, and so we have to work toward that. So I don't know if he'll end up debating or not. I do think the media's coverage of it is, again, just demonstrates a profound misunderstanding of Trump.
It's good. And with that, we're going to wrap up. We're about out of time for today's episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Speaking of the Western Journal, if you would like to get your hands on one of these, this Equipping Readers with the Truth mug, I keep selling this mug because I think this mug is awesome. And if you were drinking out of it what I'm drinking out of it, you would think so too. if you want one of these mugs, and if you want to, more importantly, support the kind of journalism that we do at the Western Journal, it's not cheap. It takes money, and so we get some of that by advertising, of course. But you can support us directly by going to the Western Journal/join. You'll see a number of possible subscription plans there where you can support the journalism that you love directly. We know you love it because you're here watching us, and we appreciate that very much. We love this conversation with you that we get to have on WJ Live. We continue this conversation on the webpage of the Western Journal, so please head there, westernjournal.com/join. Take a look at our subscription plans and partner with us so that we can continue bringing this to you every day at thewesternjournal.com. We appreciate very much your time and attention. We know there's other things you could be doing today and other ways to be spending that time. It's our privilege to have you choose to spend some of that time with us. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on WJ Live.